Hey guys, today is Friday, July 24th, 2020. So let's take a look at the market today. So yesterday I talked about the volatility expansion, that the market, the overall volatility is getting slightly bigger and bigger and bigger. It looks like a megaphone if you, this is observation, if you look at from a long-term perspective, eventually these two lines would diverge and this market would just expand further. You can see that's what it's making right now. In my past experience, if you look at the stock market in the past, the volatility expansion happens and eventually it goes above and beyond that volatility range. Let me just show you here. So if you look at this one, eventually, when you want to maybe be cautious is that for example, I'm here, right? The volatility range, the price just start jumping out of the existing kind of a trajectory, and that's something you have to be careful, because when the price goes beyond, all of a sudden going very vertical, usually it's a sign that the market is overheated and maybe it's time for a correction after this jump, right? So for example, here we've seen the volatility just keep expanding back in, since 2013, if you look at this. Right? You can see the volatility is clearly expanding and eventually ends some way. But this time it doesn't really jump out of it. It didn't really jump out of the range. So it's really hard to tell. But we have to keep in mind that the longer this market moves, the more volatile it's going to be, and eventually it's going to make a major move, probably to the downside, or if it makes a huge move to the upside, then that's a sign for the kind of end of this particular bull market, right? So we are in a pretty steep slope here. So I expect this thing to, probably not going to be sustainable with this kind of trajectory in the long term, right? Because this increase is so fast, and if the market keeps moving moving up like this, you are assuming like a 40% return every year, right? That's just not possible. It's just not possible unless we are printing so much money and we just get crazy asset pricing inflation, or the Fed is literally buying the stock market. That could make this sustainable, but then eventually it's going to break to the downside in a very massive manner, because when you have an artificial demand on the market due to Fed printing press, you have an unstable market that's not grounded on fundamentals, right? The market can deviate from fundamental for a long time, but eventually it will mean reverse, and that is just gonna be a crash scenario, right? So that's not good. Okay, so we have this, obviously we have this volatility expansion right now that is in a very steep slope. As you can see here, 2012 to from 2012 or even from 2009, the trajectory is quite manageable if you look at this, right? The slope is not that steep, and it can last for a long time. See that? So these two lines, I just drew them kind of just based on the price here. They actually stayed, the price stayed within these two lines for a long time. I just drew two lines randomly. You can see that the price was able to stay in this zone because the growth, the slope is manageable, right? Is how do I say this? Is realistic in terms of the rate of increase. But when we have something like this right now, it's just going kind of vertical. I mean, it doesn't look vertical if you look up close, but if you really look at from a larger time frame, from a daily time frame, we are going very vertical right here. So that is definitely not something that's sustainable. And just like this, we might have a huge, um, you know, volatility to the downside if this thing keeps just going like this. Okay? And I just don't know when. It could be tomorrow, it could be a few weeks later, and it's really hard to tell. You can see that today the price bounced off, retested this line, and bounced off again for NASDAQ. And for the S&P 500, I drew a similar kind of trajectory. You can see that S&P 500 is not as volatile as NASDAQ in terms of volatility expansion, but you can see that it is also kind of closing in to retest this line, this trend line or whatever you called it. And S&P 500 hasn't made an all-time high yet because a lot of sectors in the economy are still being impacted by the COVID, and it's probably not going to recover until August next year. In my previous video I talked about the vaccine, I talked about the timeline, so I'm thinking that August next year would be the end of the pandemic. That's my prediction, and so I don't think that the other sector is going to recover until then. And now the entire market is just going to be dragged up by the technology sector, which is, being propped up by the Federal Reserve money printing operation. Okay, so that's it for the index. I still have my stock Slack here and a few others. This is one of my main interests. I have my initial position in. Right now it dropped a little bit. Maybe it's gonna drop down further. It's really hard to tell. It's really hard to tell from this point on. But I'm gonna hold on to it if it drops down. One thing about I like to talk about concept of diversification. A lot of people think about diversification as in diversification across different assets or across different asset classes. For example, I buy some bonds, I buy some stocks, I buy, commodities, gold and silver. That's diversification, sure. There's also another way of diversification without having to invest in multiple assets. Right? If you have a concentrated portfolio, you should still do diversification, but you want to do diversification through time, which means you probably want to do some dollar costing average, or you probably want to, average it down if you're confident about certain companies, right? As long as this company won't go bankrupt, it won't go bankrupt in the foreseeable future, then the chance it is that the stock price is going to appreciate sometimes in the future. You just don't know when. So for these kind of companies, the chart is really messy. For this one, the chart is really messy. And I just can't, it's very, very difficult to figure out a perfect entry point for this particular stock. Maybe it's going to retest this low here. If it does, obviously, the more it drops, the more I'm going to add to this position. But don't use leverage. If you use leverage, you cannot hold on to stock for long term. Okay, and that's all I want to talk about for the stock market today. So let's take a look at the cryptocurrency, which is a very important development that is happening right now. We have a very important development in Ethereum. So since I've been talking about Ethereum, I'm bullish on Ethereum, obviously, and if you look at this long-term trend line here, that has been a resistance for a long time. If you look at this, and now we broke out of it. Right? So if I drew this, just I'm kind of curve fitting a little bit. Okay, maybe we haven't break out of it, but let me see. This chart is so messy. Let's put this in a weekly perspective. That's what we want to see. We want to see the big picture, right? The big picture. And now we are getting close to it. So we are getting close to it. Is this going to be rejected? We don't know. My instinct tells me that based on today's action, we are retesting this level. We are retesting a very critical zone. Let me just go back to daily. We are retesting this critical zone. So if you look at this particular bottom here, it's been how many days? Let's see. It's been, almost 2 years. A year and a half in this bottom forming process, and you can see that if you count from here, it's about 600 something days. If you count from here, it's about 598 days, and that's been a long time. And I think because this particular drop here is this really clear up most of the long positions and transfer from the weak hands to stronger hands. So I think the accumulation process is probably over. If you look at Amazon back in, I think I talked about the Amazon charts back in 2000. After the dot-com bubble, it crashed, Amazon crashed, came back up again. We can look at the market structure. Ethereum crashed, right? Came back up again. We crash. We come back up again. We went down again. We went down again. And we had a sharper increase here. But then we made a lower low, right? Basically shake a lot of people out. Then Amazon basically just took off to the upside. So we might see. I really want this thing to come down to this 179 level to accumulate a little bit more, but that's just my wishful thinking, right? I've been saying that for a while, but this price action, if we broke through this level, that is something extremely bullish. Unfortunately, it's not the best entry point right now, but if you want to get a piece of action, you probably have to chase a little bit for this. It's not the best way to, it's definitely not the least risky entry, but really, you probably have no choice if you look at this. I think the stage here, we're probably here in this chart. So, yeah. So you probably are looking at a major breakout to the upside. And there are several scenarios after this. Some of the scenarios are that we have something like this. Caused by a macro event, bring the price down again, give us another entry. So this was caused by a macro event, right? It was a 2008 recession. But if the macro event doesn't happen, you could have this just keep going up to a new all-time high by next March or something. It's gonna be that quick. This move is gonna be very quick because the whales, they don't want you to be there. They don't want you to be on the along the right. So we're gonna be seeing some really quick move with Ethereum if it does break the 289 level, which is I think right now we are going to accumulate a little bit. I think we're just gonna do something like this, just going flat for several days. Right, going flat with low volatility for several days. If we are going, so listen to this. It's very important. If we are doing flat with very low volatility, then that is a strong sign that this will break out, because this level is critical level. If some of the sellers shows up, they're gonna push the price down almost instantly. But if for the next few days we're just gonna go flat like this with very low volatility, then that is a sign to me that we are going to break out very viciously to the upside, like that. Of course, in the cryptocurrency market, we don't have gaps, but we're going to have some straight line just going up, right? And similar thing happened in history, okay? So if you look at the Microsoft, when Microsoft first started in 1986, it came up, it consolidated for almost 87, 88, 89, 2 years, right? Just like this, it consolidated for almost 2 years. And you can see there's some similarity between the market structure here. You can see that there was a wash and rinse, just like this. Let me just remove it. You can see that there was a wash and rinse. The major drop. You can see that, this one is even kind of similar to the structure we have here, right? You can see that we had for Microsoft, we had a sweep drive to the top, came down, the price came down, shake a lot of people out. Now the price came back up again. But for Microsoft, it came down to attract more buyers. But for us, we break out. But it doesn't matter. Honestly, it doesn't matter because we probably just gonna, we can skip through this, right? The market can't do whatever it can do because it's driven by whales. It seems that whales, they don't want to accumulate more because you can see that for Ethereum, this shakeout was more complete. It was more complete. And it's possible the whales are just gonna go through it just like Amazon. If you look at Amazon market structure, the shakeout in Amazon was more complete, was a deeper shakeout. And this one was basically, it didn't shake out everybody. If this price goes down like this, shake more people out, or even further, then that's probably, then they probably won't have this phase right here. But let me just remove all these. Anyway, so all we need to focus on what happened when the price gets to some important points, right? So the equivalent in this market structure would be Microsoft when it's trying to break this kind of overhead resistance here. That's kind of long term from the previous kind of major crash. You can see that it consolidated in a very low volatility manner for a couple of days. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days. So if we consolidate in a low volatility manner, we can hold this position for the next 3-4 days, just like Amazon, just like Microsoft, then that is a very strong bullish signal for me. And we have to take advantage of this. We probably have to buy. We have to buy at this point. Buy more at this point. Right now, I have my position there. I have my initial position always with me, but I wish I had bought more, honestly. But so I don't have to buy at this point. 284, which is kind of expensive from, I was buying on the 173, and but it is what it is, right? I was expecting the market, this thing to drop down to 178, but it never happened. If we consolidate here, I think we're going to break out right now. Well, the rocket's taking off, and it doesn't matter how you think. It doesn't matter. I mean, the market's it's not going to wait for you, or it's not going to give you opportunity because you want it, or the best entry opportunity because you want it. Sometimes it just takes off and without you. If you missed it, you missed it. Unfortunately, this time, if the only other entry we can have is at this moment would be just here, because you can see that here for Microsoft there wasn't any entry afterwards, right? You're gonna be buying at a higher price. For Amazon, let's see. For Amazon, obviously after this move there wasn't anything until very later on. Like after a long time consolidation, that's like 2 years consolidation, Then eventually it dropped because the recession, housing market crash brought down the entire stock market, gave you another entry. But if that doesn't happen, right? If that housing market crash didn't happen, I'm pretty sure Amazon would just gonna keep flat and keep going up, right? You wouldn't get another opportunities. So yeah. So if it, again, very important. This video is very important. If we have something like this, right? Zoom in. Low volatility consolidation, low volatility consolidation at a very important level. I mean, the level doesn't, I mean, Amazon basically got through it. So this one was just accumulating some energy. And we probably just flat consolidation. So this is what I'm looking for. If we do have that, definitely need to pull the trigger right now. Okay, put more into the Ethereum. All right, that's all I want to talk about today, and see you next time. Hope you guys can make money. Okay, I really hope you guys can make money. I want to make money too, and that's what we're here for. Okay.